war. War never changes, and neither does my reliance on this type of video to carry the channel. Hello everyone, this is Aqua Sloth, and this is the official guidebook for Fallout New Vegas, written and released by Prima Games on October 19th, 2010, and currently available for free, courtesy of the Internet Archive. Now, I'm assuming you guys have seen a lot of the videos about beating games the way the developers intended, but for those of you that are new around here, I will be using the official Fallout New Vegas guidebook to beat the game in what I believe to be the most intended way possible. Meaning I will take the guide's advice on who to side with, the order of progression, choices throughout the story, the whole shebang. Now, Prima Games does state that they did work directly with Bethesda and Obsidian to write this guide, so unless the big TH comes down from the heavens to tell us otherwise, this is probably the closest we'll ever get to an intended way of playing New Vegas. If you do want to check out this guide for yourself, I have linked it in the description below, and if you end up liking this style of video, I actually have a whole playlist of other games I've covered the way the developers intended, so if you want to check that out, the playlist to that is also below. But with all that out of the way, let's get into this shit. After an 18-carat run of bad luck, aka a bullet to the dome piece, we awaken in Doc Mitchell's home in Good Springs, Nevada, roughly 38 miles outside of New Vegas. He tells us that a gang of ruffians shot us in the head the night before, and the local robot cowboy dug us up and brought us to the dock to be nursed back to health. How he was able to save us from a bullet to the brain is beyond me, but, I've also never seen a gecko this big, so, anything's possible. Before we create our character, the guide gives a detailed list of every stat, trait, special skill, the benefits of each skill and how they affect our character, and a breakdown of every single perk in the game, and might I say, holy fucking info dump. I'm obviously not going to go over every single perk in the game, especially since we won't be using like 90% of them, but they do give a few recommendations for our starting traits, and highly recommend choosing Good-Natured and Four Eyes, which increases our speech, medicine, repair, science, barter, and perception right off the bat. The only other traits they even kind of seem to suggest we choose are heavy-handed if we plan on using melee weapons, and small frame for faster reload times, but these both seem a little too circumstantial to be the intended choice. For our special skills, they say that first-time Mojave explorers should spread their cheeks as evenly as possible, and the big three to prioritize are strength, endurance, and intelligence, which we need to assign at least 7 points to each. Agility and luck should be close seconds, with perception and charisma being the lowest level for our first playthrough. For our specific character skills, they say that we should focus on repair and guns as our primary combat skill, and level each to 55 to start, and our secondary combat skill should either be melee or energy weapons. They do warn us that melee weapons are pretty good in the early game, but quickly fall off in the mid to late game areas, so unless we just really want to do a melee build, energy weapons seems to be the way to go. As we level, they say to try to pump 60 to 75% of our points into the first two skills, and whatever we have left into our secondary combat skill until they are all at level 75, at which point we can focus on the less important skills. They also warn us against leveling any skills to 100, and specifically say not to do this, since we can find various skill books and magazines in the Mojave that will boost our skills without the need to spend our points, giving us even more freedom to level weirder shit. And with all that out of the way, we can finally tell the doc to kick rocks, loot his house for goodies, and head out on our adventure into the desert waste.
Oh, hey! I didn't see you there. Hey everyone, this is Aqua Sloth in my backyard, just mowing up a storm. If you're seeing this video, that means that I have some new summer merch available. Granted, it's very late, but it's merch nonetheless. We've got the brand new Aqua Sloth Smoking Goats Varsity Tee. We have the Aqua Sloth Vultures Tee, which is a personal favorite of mine, as well as a new bumper sticker, the Keep Honking, I'm listening to Aqua Sloth's Mower Mayhem playlist and Chain Smoking Camel Crush Menthols. You also get the free Calvin Pissing on Aqua Sloth sticker with any purchase of the bumper stickers. You just have to cut it yourself. That's the deal. I also totally forgot that we also have the Aqua Sloth metal logo embroidered on a corduroy hat, also available if that tickles your fancy. I've also got all the old merch from the last drop up if you're interested in those. Everything is available at aquasloth.bigcartel.com. That is aquasloth.bigcartel.com. bigcartel.com. Happy mowing, folks.
For Act 1, they say that we can pretty much progress any way we want since our alliances don't really matter until Act 2, so our main focus right now should just be making it to New Vegas. They do recommend doing the first 3 tutorial missions with Sunny Smiles and the folks around Goodsprings, which will set us up with a handful of weapons and give us a bit of a head start before continuing the main quest. Being that this is New Vegas, they also mention that you can just kill Sunny and wipe out the whole town, but this is obviously not the recommended way from the developers for a first playthrough, and also ultimately doesn't really help us in any substantial way. Once we finish up with Sunny and fend off the powder gangers from taking over Goodsprings, the guide says to track down Victor to hear about the night that we got shot, then head south of town to the Vicky and Vance Casino in Prim. Here, we need to speak to Johnson Nash and ask him about the man who stole the chip from us, which results in him pointing us to Deputy Beagle, who just so happens to be being held prisoner next door in the Bison Steve Casino. After making our way through the escaped convicts inside, we can shake down Deputy Beagle for information, putting us back on the road headed southeast to the beautiful city of Nipton. Smell that air!
Couldn't you just drink it like booze? Couldn't you just drink it like booze?
Couldn't you just drink it like booze?
What the fuck?
After meeting the kind folks of Caesar's Legion, the guide says we can either listen, fight, or flee from the group, but regardless of what we choose, continue along to Novak to speak to Jeannie Mae Crawford in the motel. She points us to a man named Cliff Briscoe, who's about as useless as tits on a bowl, but he does tell us about Manny Vargas, who finally has some information for us. Manny is understandably skeptical about just handing out information to a total stranger, so before he tells us about the man in the checkered coat, we must first take out the ghouls at the RepCon test site, which upon completion convinces Manny to give us the deeds. Alternatively, the guide says we can also sneak into Manny's motel room and check his browser history, which will not only reveal what kind of freaky shit he's into, but also tells us that the group we're looking for is located in Boulder City, just northeast of town. We can also kill Manny and loot the holotape off his body, but they once again say that this doesn't help our cause. Continuing up the road to Boulder City, we need to introduce ourselves to Lieutenant Monroe of the NCR, which starts the side quest Boulder City Showdown, in which we need to play a game of telephone with the Great Khans to convince them to release the NCR prisoners that they're holding hostage. Seeing as the guide explicitly told us not to level charisma, our negotiation skills are shoddy at best, so convincing the Great Khans to release their prisoners goes about as well as you'd expect from someone with negative riz. I'm 27 years old, and I just said negative riz. Someone please give me the pink juice. Holy fuck. While our attempt to free the prisoners ultimately fails, we do make some headway in our own personal quest for revenge, as one of the members of this group of Great Khans just so happens to be one of the same members of the group that shot us in Goodsprings, that being Mr. Jessup Khan. After showing Jessup the cigarette butts that I definitely forgot to pick up from the gravesite, he tells us that they belong to a man named Benny who is currently shacking up in one of the casinos in New Vegas, which we can make our way towards after failing yet another speech check to get Benny's lighter. We may not be able to form a coherent sentence, but by God do we have the nimblest fingers this side of the Mississippi. This starts the final quest of Act 1, Ring-a-Ding-Ding, in which we need to make our way to New Vegas to confront Benny, who's voiced by the late Matthew Perry, known for his role in the smash hit 1995 sitcom, The John Larroquette Show. Seeing as New Vegas is locked up pretty tight and the securitrons don't just let anyone in, the guide says to enter through the Freeside East Gate and for the full neon effect, to wait until nighttime to enter the city. Wowee, look at all that light. To enter the strip where the casinos are located, we must first pass a drip check from the gatekeepers, which involves us showing them at least 2,000 caps to prove that we aren't just some bum wandering in. Since we are indeed just some bum wandering in, getting to the strip will require some alternative methods of entry. Firstly, the guide notes that if our science is high enough, which it is not, we can actually verbally hack the gatekeepers and just bypass the caps check entirely. Seeing as I don't think my guy could put the batteries in a DirecTV remote correctly, our next best option is to enter the School of Impressions and get a passport from the king after completing the side quest GI Blues. Alternatively, we can also get a fake passport from Mick and Ralph's General Store for 500 caps, which I will never financially recover from, leaving us with the last best option of sneaking into Camp McCarran dressed as a member of the NCR and entering the terminal building to ride the monorail into the strip. They also note that if we have Boone as a companion, the guards will actually just let us in, or if for some reason we don't want Boone, which, come on, of course we do, then we can wait for the changing of the guards at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. and sneak our way into the monorail, also dropping us off at the strip. This is one thing I really do like about New Vegas, especially compared to the later Bethesda games, because it really does feel like every interaction you have can be totally different depending on what your character is good at. Like, if I was a sciencey build, I could have just bypassed this entirely and walked straight in, but because my guy is dumb as shit and can't fake his way past the guards, it forced me to go befriend Boone and find out that his whole ass wife was sold to slaves by that dried up bitch in Novak. Then I have to drag his ass into a base where he's known by the other soldiers, who then let us through into the city. Shit is so fucking cool, man. And I'm saying this as someone who genuinely enjoys and continues to enjoy Fallout 4, but it's just really refreshing to see all the different ways that you can progress, and it's not just like point A to point B to point C. There you go, that's the quest. It's definitely something I feel like got left behind in later games, specifically with Fallout and like Elder Scrolls. Anyway, regardless of how we choose to proceed, we now need to meet up with our old pal Victor, who tells us to go see Mr. House to find out more about Benny and the Platinum Chip. After meeting with Mr. House, he tells us what we need to know and sends us to the Tops Casino to retrieve the chip, which goes, not as well as you'd hope. Once inside the casino, we need to speak to Swank at the front desk and convince him that Benny is a rat by showing him the cigarette butts and stolen lighter, which will prompt him to give us Benny's sweet key, where we can get the jump on him to retrieve the chip. This is another interaction that can go a number of different ways depending on our speech skill and convincing of Swank, but pretty much every outcome results in Benny getting his shit blown smooth off, or if we're a lady, getting blown, period. Yes, you can actually just fuck Benny and steal the chip back. The devs truly thought of every scenario. The guide also mentions that we can just walk straight into the Tops Casino and bypass Mr. House entirely, which is not the recommended route since we are going to need Mr. House in later quests, but they mentioned it, so I kind of felt obligated to do the same. Once Benny is dead and the chip is back in our possession, we should be stopped by two individuals upon exiting the casino. The first interaction is with a creepy motherfucker named Volpace Inculta, who gives us the Mark of Caesar and tells us to go see him at the Fortification Hill, aka the Fort. And the second is with an NCR trooper who tells us to go speak to Ambassador Crocker at the NCR Embassy to join up with their ranks. At this point, we can choose to meet with either or neither of the leaders, since our affiliation with all groups is still pretty neutral, but eventually we do need to return to Mr. House with the Platinum Chip to progress into Act 2. Once again giving us another choice in the story, the guide also says we can return to Benny's suite and speak to Yes Man in his grimy-ass workshop, which will set us on the path of the independent/wildcard route, choosing to side with nobody if we so desire. Once we give the chip back to House, he tells us about his plan to upgrade his secret army of securitrons to a more lethal and rocket-wielding variety that he can use to better control the wasteland, and while this might seem kinda sketchy and power-hungry of him, he definitely seems like the lesser of all evils. The NCR are a bunch of bootlicking white boys, and Caesar's Legion are literal slave traders, so like, what choice do we really have, you know? After getting sufficiently wigged out by Papa House, he tells us to go to Caesar's camp at Fortification Hill, aka the Fort, and use the chip to upgrade the securitrons currently being held in the underground bunker at Fortification Hill, aka the Fort. But seeing as we can't just waltz into enemy territory with no one batting an eye, we actually need to go undercover as a Legionnaire and speak to Cursor Lucullus at Cottonwood Cove. Prior to boarding the boat, Lucullus tells us that we need to forfeit all of our belongings before entering, which we must do in order to meet Caesar and gain access to the weather monitoring station where the securitrons are being held. Now, you might be thinking, surely he doesn't just trust us to go in by ourselves, unsupervised, to destroy the robots, and that is exactly what he does. He just says, okay, here's the chip. Come back when it's done. Like, what a fucking idiot, man. This is who you guys want running the wasteland? Once we gain access to the bunker, we need to fight our way through a handful of Protectrons to the terminal where we insert the Platinum Chip, which, once activated, allows House to upgrade his Securitrons to the Mark II version, which is a tremendous help for the upcoming fight at Hoover Dam. The guide does note that at this point we can still choose to side with either the NCR, Caesar, or the independent New Vegas routes, and actually use the chip to destroy the Securitrons, but since we're siding with House, there's no real benefit to blowing them all up now. If we had chosen to side with Caesar or the Legion, destroying the Securitrons here is actually super helpful since the ones we face later at the dam would only be the Mark I versions, which are much easier to deal with. Still brick shithouses, but at least they don't have rockets and Gatling lasers. Returning to Caesar in his raggedy-ass tent, we need to lie to him first to get all of our gear back, then return to House to start the House Always Wins 3. The guide says that this is the point where our alliance has become super important, since from here on out it will be impossible to switch once we've chosen a side. Continuing our alliance with House, he now tasks us with either convincing the boomers to join our cause, or if that's not an option, making sure they don't get in our way. To convince them to help, we must first go to their headquarters at Nellis Air Force Base and speak to Raquel at the front gate, who points us to the leader of the group, Mother Pearl. As is the case with every faction so far, the guide does note that we can just walk in and mow everyone down, and they don't even really seem to suggest against that, but given the choices that they've had us make so far, it definitely seems more intended to get their help rather than just kill everyone. In order to gain their trust, we must first speak to a few key members and help them out in whatever way we can, which results in us robbing an NCR power station for scrap metal, for solar panels, playing a game of telephone to get my boy Jack some wicked hot puss, and listening to a young child tell us the history of the boomers. All riveting stuff, I assure you. Most of these are just aimless fetch quests, but Mother Pearl does eventually task us with tracking down an alleged crashed bomber, which upon locating at the bottom of Lake Mead, we are asked to help transport back to the base, where they can repair the ship and prepare it for war. Once we are at the idolized rank with the boomers, we can return to the Lucky 38 and speak to Mr. House, moving us on to the House Always Wins 4, which involves us hopping next door to the Gomorrah Casino to find out what's going on with the Omertas family. The guide also mentions that before heading over, we can flirt with Mr. House, and then does not elaborate at all. They just say, also you can flirt with Mr. House. That's it. To make a long fucking story short, we need to put a whole bag of jelly beans up our ass, meet up with Gachino and low-key blackmail him into liking us, then destroy the secret stockpile of weapons the Omertas have been hiding, before whacking the family bosses Sal and Nero. Once they're out of the picture and Gachino is the sole proprietor of the casino, we need to return to House and inform him that the Omertas have been neutralized, which will move us on to the House Always Wins 5, where we are tasked with eliminating the final threat for our plot to overthrow the Wasteland, the Brotherhood of Steel. Coming from Fallout 4, I was expecting the Brotherhood to have a much bigger role in New Vegas, so I was kind of shocked to see that not only could you not choose them as a side to finish the main story, but you can also eliminate them in a side quest. The guide glosses over pretty much their entire quest line, at least in this main walkthrough section. There is a more detailed version in the side quest chapter, but they more or less say that we can walk in and try to kill everyone, which is not recommended, and they are very capable of just pushing our shit straight into our butt. Or we can activate the bunker's self-destruct sequence by pickpocketing 3 keycards, then accessing the red terminal. This is A, fucking hilarious to me, and B, kind of what they seem to recommend we do. Of the 6 paragraphs they wrote here about the Brotherhood of Steel, 3 of them detail how to enact the self-destruct sequence, which is not only the path of least resistance, but also siding with the Brotherhood at all goes directly against what House wants. They do mention that progressing through the Brotherhood of Steel's questline can reward us with some powerful weapons and power armor training, but even then, they finish off this spread by saying, afterwards, kill everyone. With the Brotherhood reduced to a pile of ash, we need to return to the Lucky 38 to start the House Always Wins 6, where we work with the NCR to prevent President Campbell from getting assassinated by Caesar's Legion. Or we would, if the guide had mentioned 3 quests ago that we already need to be in good standings with the NCR. Otherwise, we skip the entire interaction and Kimball gets his head blown clean off. They do mention that we need to already be liked by the NCR before starting this quest, but didn't bother to mention it in the quest that actually determines if we can still progress with the NCR, which, if I remember correctly, was the House Always Wins 3. Choosing to go all in with House fails the Don't Poke the Bear quest, where we have the choice to join with the NCR, and failing to meet with them labels us as a terrorist and completely bans us from joining the Republic. Because they now hate us, we essentially skip straight into the House Always Wins 7, where we need to take an override chip to the NCR guarded El Dorado substation to activate a terminal that will broaden Mr. House's transmission strength, giving him full control of securitrons at Hoover Dam. Before starting the third and final act, the guide gives a breakdown similar to the one that we've been following for House, that lists every option and quest for the NCR, Caesar's Legion, and the independent quest lines, and details how to progress through those. But seeing as we can only choose one ending, I'm not really going to go into detail on the other faction quests. If you do want to check those out, again, I have linked the guide below. Feel free to hop over there after we're done here, but if you've played the game before, you've probably realized that at this point, it's just do the House Always Wins 1, do the House Always Wins 2, 3, 4, yada yada. They say that Act 3 depends entirely on who we've sided with so far, so outcomes vary depending on who we've befriended and who we've beheaded. For the independent route, the quest No Gods, No Masters is essentially just you and Yes Man against the world. Vini Vidi Vici has you fighting securitrons and NCR troopers alongside Caesar's Legion, and Eureka is basically the same thing but sub out the Legion for NCR troopers. Siding with House pits us against mainly Legionnaires, but there are a few NCR troops here and there, seeing as they also fucking hate us. We must initially fight our way across the first stretch of dam into the interior, where we are able to route power to our Securitron brothers underneath Caesar's camp, then make our way into said camp to sever the head of the snake. This is also the point where Boone decides to get his panties in a bunch because I'm low-key murdering his comrades. So from this point forward, we're flying Lonesome Dove. You know, aside from the army of robots and the boomers. While fighting our way across the dam, they say to tune into the NCR emergency station to hear the carnage ensue, and also notes that if we have made friends with the boomers, our main man Loyal will stay true to his name and fly the repaired bomber overhead, clearing out the way for us to proceed. We then need to progress as normal through the camp until we hit the brick of all shithouses, Legate Lanius with his big, fat, girthy, veiny, throbbing sword. If our speech is high enough, the guide actually says that we can convince Lanius to retreat with what troops he has left, ending the game with, well, not no bloodshed, but certainly less. Seeing as at this point my speech is at a cool 55, I am able to pass the first speech check, and then nothing else, leaving us with the obvious option of fighting, and ain't no way my brittle bones having asses taking out that behemoth. Are you kidding? They say work smarter, not harder, and baby, I must be the brightest bulb in the pack, cause I'm running this shit like Dallas 1963, silently, and from hundreds of yards away with a sniper rifle, cause that's the most honorable way to kill someone. Once the Legate Lamass is disposed of, the NCR comes busting nuts into the camp and gives us another speech check. God damn it, I really wish I would have leveled speech. And gives us another speech check to determine the fate of General Lee Oliver and his band of rangers. Once again, if our speech is at 100, we can convince him to stand down and end the feud peacefully, but, well... And just like that, we're done, man. Mr. House comes rolling up in his electric wheelchair to congratulate us on a job well done, and shortly thereafter, the credits roll. The wasteland continues to be a low-key shithole, but at least New Vegas is like a shining jewel among the rotting corpses and giant geckos and death claws and those centaur motherfuckers. Those things are fucking horrifying. And there you go. That's beating Fallout New Vegas the way Bethesda, Obsidian, and Prima Games intended. If you liked this style of video, I wanted to once again plug my other guide videos covering the Dark Souls trilogy, Elden Ring, and Majora's Mask. So if you want to subscribe and stick around for the next one, I would be eternally grateful for your support. You can also check out my Discord, my merch, and the YouTube membership thing if you feel like supporting the channel further. Obviously not required in the slightest, but if you do want to support, it's there for you. Anyway, y'all, that is all I've got for you. Thanks so much for being here today. I have been Aqua Sloth. You have been great as always, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.